Last week, I did a video on the absurdity of how Tulsa, Oklahoma has never had Amtrak service. Unfortunately, I don't have the power to single handedly undo that reality. But I do have the power to at least propose train service for Tulsa on this YouTube channel. And so, that's what I'm doing today. As to how I plan on connecting Tulsa to the Amtrak network, you'll need to listen to the rest of this video to find out. Tulsa is part of the Interstate 44 corridor, which goes from St. Louis, Missouri to Wichita Falls, Texas. The corridor is well served by anyone who wants to drive, but it's not so well served by trains. While Tulsa is by far the largest metro area in this corridor without Amtrak, it is not the only metro area in the corridor without it. Because of that, the line I propose in this video is one that serves part of the I-44 corridor between St. Louis and Oklahoma City, with intermediate stops. The first stop, of course, is in St. Louis, where there is already an Amtrak station. I don't have much to say here since it's a major city, other than that this is a place where you can connect to several other Amtrak services: the Texas Eagle, the Lincoln service to Chicago, or the Missouri River Runner to Kansas City. The next stop would be in Kirkwood, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. This would offer another connection to the Missouri River Runner. But after Kirkwood, the path of this line diverges from the path of the Missouri River Runner. Another suburban St. Louis stop would be in Eureka, Missouri, which has a population over 11,000 people. Six Flags St. Louis is also in Eureka, so I think it'd be pretty cool if there were a bus of some sort connecting Eureka's downtown area, where the station would be near, to the Six Flags location. After all, I am all in favor of car-free travel to and from vacation destinations. The next stop would be in Pacific, a small city with a population just over 7,400 people, as of the 2020 census. This stop can be skipped by some of the faster trains on this line, due to the small population size of Pacific relative to some of the other cities on this line. The following stop would be in Sullivan, with a population just over 6,900 people. This is another stop that can be skipped by express service. I should say at this point of the video that the rail trackage is more or less paralleling Interstate 44. And, depending on how cheap the government and Amtrak are, you'd either be using tracks owned by BNSF Railway, or else tracks parallel to those owned by BNSF. But personally, I hope that we can have Amtrak dedicated tracks here, and frankly, Amtrak dedicated tracks all across the country as well. The next stop would be in Rolla, with a population of close to 20,000 people. Rolla is also home to the Missouri University of Science and Technology, which had over 6,400 students as of 2023. While not massive compared to some university populations, I think it's beneficial to make sure the university is served by the Amtrak network. There would then be a stop in Lebanon, a city with a population of around 15,000 people. And then I'd have a stop in Marshfield, a suburb of Springfield, Missouri. It had close to 7,500 people as of the 2020 census. This is a stop that can be skipped by express train service. Speaking of Springfield, that is the next stop, heading west. This is a city with a population of over 169,000 people, and the total metro area population of Springfield is about 475,000 people. While the start of my video brought up how I'm going to propose a line that would put Tulsa in the Amtrak network, I think putting Springfield in the Amtrak network would also be noteworthy. Springfield, for the record, has no Amtrak service currently. West of Springfield, I'd add a train station in Republic, which is a fast-growing suburb of Springfield. The city has more than doubled in population between 2000 and 2020. The following stop would be in Aurora, which had a population of around 7,200 people as of 2020. This is another stop that express trains can skip. I'd then have a stop at Monette. The city has a population of just over 9,500 people. This might end up being a stop all trains stop at, though, for the simple reason that it's at Monette, where you have some train tracks heading south towards the rapidly growing cities of northwest Arkansas. So Monette might end up being a key stop for connecting to a train to that part of Arkansas. Though what's more likely is that any trains heading to northwest Arkansas would terminate in Springfield, just because it makes the most sense to me to connect metro areas to other metro areas, rather than connecting metro areas to smaller cities. The following stop would be in Neosho. Apologies if I mispronounced that, by the way. Neosho has over 12,500 people. Now, some might be wondering, what about Joplin, just in the north of Neosho? Rest assured, I have not forgotten about Joplin. Unfortunately, it's to the north of existing right-of-way train tracks between Springfield and Tulsa. I do propose a couple of options for connecting Amtrak to Joplin, though. One of them would be a route between Neosho and Joplin directly. But I think an even better option would be a route between Springfield and Joplin, with intermediate stops in Republic, Aurora, Carthage, and Webb City. Either way, I just wanted to reassure my viewers that I was thinking about Joplin while making this video, and that there are a couple of ways you could connect Joplin to this line. Also, as a side note, if the imaginary train world of this video got its way, Springfield, Missouri would suddenly become a major train hub. Getting back to the line in question, the train would cross the border into Oklahoma, and the first stop in Oklahoma would be in the city of Vinita. It has a population of close to 5,200 people, and it could be skipped by express trains. The following stop would be in Claremore, which has a population of close to 20,000. By this point, we're heading to the Tulsa metro area, if you're heading west towards Oklahoma City. And speaking of Tulsa, that is the next stop, heading west. It only took me, 14 stops or so for me to finally mention Tulsa, which I led off with in this video. But we're finally to Tulsa, so let's celebrate. I would then have a stop at Sapulpa, a decent-sized suburb of Tulsa. The next to last stop would be at Midwest City, a suburb of Oklahoma City. It's a decent-sized city, with a population of over 58,000 people as of the 2020 census. And then the last stop would be in Oklahoma City itself. That's proposing something the state of Oklahoma has failed to do: connect Tulsa to Oklahoma City by way of passenger rail. Many interstate lines in the Amtrak network connect two sizable metropolitan areas. This line connects 4: St. Louis, Springfield, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City. But would this be a good line? Let's find out. Before giving out grades, I just want to remind people to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content on imagining better rail transit in the United States. I'm also down for comments in the comment section below. Now, back to the video. In order to get a sense of how good my idea actually is, I'm going to score this proposed line on 5 criteria that determine the ability of a line to get built in the first place, and then the ability of the line to succeed when built. Those 5 criteria are feasibility of proposal, time saved versus other modes of transport, anticipated demand, priority level, and impact on the greater Amtrak network. Not in that order in this video, though. I'll score all of these metrics out of 20, so that way our final score is out of 100. First, let's consider the priority level. This is where I assess how high of a priority this proposed line is in my opinion. The fact that this plan would bring Amtrak to Tulsa, one of the few Amtrak-less metro areas with a metro population of above 1 million people, makes this line a very high priority. The fact that this proposed line to Tulsa connects Tulsa to Oklahoma City makes it an even higher priority for rail advocates who've been craving this inner-city connection for decades. The fact that this proposed line would also bring service to the Amtrak-less city of Springfield, a sizable city and metro area in its own right, takes the importance level up a couple more notches. If this line isn't a high priority, I'm not sure what line proposal would be a high priority. I give this line a 20 out of 20 for priority level. Now to feasibility of the proposal. In this series, I'm finding that this metric is maybe the most complicated. And, it's no different here. I have good news and bad news here. One piece of good news is that most of the route's path is already in place by way of train tracks, meaning that even if you build new tracks, you don't need to destroy too many properties to make this possible. That said, you may want to straighten out tracks in some places, but this track straightening would mostly be happening in rural areas. The complicated piece is assessing the intersection of politics and feasibility. On the Missouri portion of the line, the state of Missouri doesn't strike me as the most friendly to public transit. However, to the Missouri government's credit, they do fund a state-supported route in the Amtrak network, the twice-daily Missouri River Runner between St. Louis and Kansas City. This tells me that the Missouri government might be willing to fund this route if they deem it to be important enough. On the Oklahoma side, they only have a singular once-daily service, and that service has been on the budgetary chopping block before. Overall, feasibility is kind of mid in my opinion, hence my giving a score of 14 out of 20 for feasibility of the proposal. On the topic of anticipated demand, there were a couple of things that helped me assess demand levels. One of them was flights between cities on this route. Notably, I found that there are 2 daily flights between Tulsa and St. Louis, and that there are 81,000 people who travel from the Oklahoma City airport to the St. Louis airport over the course of a year. I then also use a metric called annual average daily traffic, which is the total volume of traffic in a year divided by the 365 days of the year. With annual average daily traffic, I found that even the most remote parts of Oklahoma and Missouri had an annual average daily traffic in the 15,000 to 25,000 range. If 5 to 10% of people who use road and air use the train instead, a conservative estimate perhaps, if the rail transit were competitive with the car and the train, I think there would be enough demand for several trains per day, per direction. For anticipated demand, I give this a 16 out of 20. Now for impact on the greater Amtrak network. As mentioned earlier in this video, the line connects with multiple trains in St. Louis. Additionally, it would connect with the Heartland Flyer in Oklahoma City, a line that heads to the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. The connections with other Amtrak lines is valuable. It would probably boost ridership on these lines. I give this a 20 out of 20 for impact on the greater Amtrak network. As for time saved, this is not one of the more glowing charts I've seen. St. Louis flights to Oklahoma are faster than train rides to Oklahoma, even when you account for things like heading to the airport 2 hours early for domestic flights. It's also really difficult for trains to have a significant edge on paper versus cars, and I think that's because the speed limits on highways in this part of the country are usually 70 to 75 miles per hour, with a sprinkling of 80 mile per hour speed limits in a small part of Oklahoma. I do think you end up with net time savings on the train versus the car when you consider all that you can do on a train but can't do while driving. And because of that, I'll give this a 14 out of 20 for time saved versus other modes of transport. If you do the math, what you get is a score of 84 out of 100. If I remember correctly, this is the highest rated line I've done thus far. That tells me 2 things. First, I'm a tough grader, because anything above a 90 is an A, and I haven't given a 90 or above to any line yet. And second, that this is a good line. It's not the first line you might think of when it comes to ones Amtrak needs, but it's a line Amtrak definitely needs, in my opinion. Oh, and by the way, the name I would give this train is the Oklahoman. As this train connects to Oklahoma's 2 largest metropolitan areas, I think the name is quite fitting, even if it spends the majority of its distance in Missouri. If you have any thoughts on the proposed St. Louis to Oklahoma City line, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you, and have a good day.